Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again with something that we haven't really done for quite a while. It's been a few months, and that's going to be an overall pull value tier list for Wuthering Waves. Yes, this seems to be the meta right now because there's unfortunately not that much content in the patch, and there hasn't been for the past month or so in the game. So what other better content for us to do other than, you know, take a look at every single character, every single limited one that's been released, and make our judgments on how valuable they are nowadays with how the meta in the game is shifted. So we've got Qiuyuan, Shisabuling over here. We're going to be going from Qiuyuan downwards, kind of like in an opposite order, just to help spice up the experience for anybody who's been watching these for a while. So when it comes to the qualifications of this tier list, we're going to be keeping just a few general game modes in mind. We're going to be factoring in their performance, of course, in the Tower of Adversity, factoring in levels 3 and 4 that got added to the Hazard Zone, the middle tower, and then, of course, their performance in Whimpering Wastes. Thankfully, I can tell you that pretty much every single team in the game that's featuring limited characters and somewhat best-in-slot lineups is going to have a pretty good chance of completing either of these two game modes. But just their overall performance and how well they do compared to other teams, that's what's going to be factored in. So with that out of the way, we're just going to go ahead and get ourselves started with the first ranking on this tier list, and that's going to be Qiuyuan. So keeping that in mind, we're talking about overall pull value, what like how much this character is going to actually benefit your account, how many other characters they can actually work with, and we're also going to factor in the alternatives that they're going to be having as well. So with that in mind, Qiuyuan's first placement, I think, is just going to be at a B tier. And the reason why I'm going to be putting him in the B tier is quite simple. He's a character that's going to grow in value over time. But right now, in the current state of the game, he has very many alternatives in the teams that he already has that kind of make pulling him not really that beneficial. He's not a character that is going to go ahead and like change the way that your account works. He's a character that's going to greatly amplify, right, and improve the performance of, I'm just putting these here for like just demonstration's sake. This is not their actual ranking. He just really makes these two characters really, really, really good and really, really, really strong. And the reason for that is quite simple. When it comes to Qiuyuan and what he actually provides to teams, he is, first and foremost, a buffer, right? His Law of Harmony set that's best in slot for him simply goes ahead and grants echo skill damage to the entire team. Then he has multiple other buffs to echo skill damage, like in his Bamboo Shade, and then of course his outro skill that gives 50% echo skill damage amplification. So there's just a lot of stuff. He also has like a crit damage buff as well on his Liberation. He's kind of just a character that makes those other units shine. But, and this is the big sort of situation going on over here, the teams or the characters that he really improves already have alternative teams that they can just clear all the end game with anyways. Galbrena, for example, can just be used in Mono Fusion if you already have the team enabled. She's slightly better with Qiuyuan, but it's not to the degree of like breaking the game. Similarly, when it comes to a, let's just say a Phrolova lineup over here, you would have like Phrolova, then Qiuyuan, and then Cantarella. Well, this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. You can take Qiuyuan out, you can replace them with Dan Jin, and you'll still clear very, very, very easily. You can replace them with Havoc Rover, imagine that they're Havoc, and you'll still clear easily. You can also replace them with, well, ROCCIA as well if you have her, and that's also going to clear easily. And so the end result is that, like, even if you have this lineup, you have so many different alternatives that you can put into his slot, and you'll still have a pretty good time clearing with this team. And that just kind of makes his overall value, at least in my opinion, not really at the same level as, well, other characters, because he just makes these top-tier units that already have top-tier teams slightly better. And with that in mind, it's sort of just like, is that really that high value? Probably not. However, in the future, Qiuyuan is a character that I feel like is going to have value that grows over time because he just has 50% skill damage, echo skill damage amplification built into his kit. This is something that's going to work with any future echo skill damage that ever releases in the future. So until that happens, though, right now his use cases are kind of limited because he has two teams. And let's just not even talk about his main DPS potential at S0. It's not there. It really fucking sucks. It's super bad. So that's not really like a route to viability either, unfortunately. So that's going to be Qiuyuan. I know some people might be upset with this placement, but hopefully I've given you all the reasons for why he's not really that valuable of a pick. And, well, he might be a little bit higher in the future. So yeah, that's going to be that unit. Now, let's move on to Galbrena. Yeah, she's going to go in B tier as well. And the reason for this is quite simple. She is one of the most unnecessary and one of the most replaceable units that is just in the game. Because the reality of the situation is that any team that Galbrena is doing well on in the present, you can kind of just slot in Encore and it just works out kind of the same. That's the reality of it. The team that I just showed you before, right? This lineup over here, which is considered one of Galbrena's best teams. You can literally just put in Encore over here and the team clears exceptionally well. That's one of the realities of Mono Fusion. This duo over here are so high value that they can basically elevate any fusion character that deals damage into a very high performing position. And of course, naturally, you can also use CHANGLI, if you happen to have her, in this lineup as well. And all three of these units, while Galbrena does deal the most overall damage compared to them, they all already clear, and they're all extremely competitive already. So it's sort of just like, okay, you don't really need her. And then even in the team lineup, right, where she is exceptional in, right, when you run Galbrena, Shorekeeper, and then Qiuyuan as like the main buffer, the sub DPS that's going to give her the amplification, this is sort of just like, okay, you'll get top tier performance in this team, but then it's only like echo skill damage, and then Qiuyuan isn't really a character that's going to be like able to work in a bunch of different lineups. This is a lot more different than, say, a team like this, where you have Augusta, Iuno, and then of course Shorekeeper on the side. Iuno can like support way more lineups, right? She can do like a whole like spectral frazzle thing going on with like ZANI and Phoebe. Then she can go ahead and then also do like the JIYAN thing with Shorekeeper, and then the JIYAN thing with like Ciaccona, right? There's just so many more use cases for those characters in these lineups when you don't have a very, you know, specific sort of archetype like echo skill damage. And so it's just, even investing in the Galbrena team just gives you less options. And then this team also actually ends up dealing less damage than the Augusta and Iuno team. The end result is sort of just like, I don't know, she doesn't really feel like that great of a character in the meta. And I think a lot of people have realized that, and that's why a lot of people just didn't really pull her, and they didn't really pull Qiuyuan either, because it was pretty clear to see what the limitations were going to be in other team comps supporting other characters in the future. So that's why she's just going to be down there, because in every team that she works well in, there's like an alternative, and even in her best in slot team, it's really restrictive and doesn't really allow you to experiment more with different lineups. And that's a little bit rough. I think these are two of the most skippable characters that we've ever had in the history of the game. Like I said before, Qiuyuan's value can grow higher in the future, but Galbrena's does feel like kind of set in stone. And I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't really seem very high. Now, let's move on and, of course, start talking about some of the other units. And, well, that next one up is going to be Iuno. And based off of the discussion that we started in the Galbrena section, you can probably see why I'm putting Iuno in S tier. Because this character, ladies and gentlemen, can kind of fucking do everything. She has the personal damage, right, to perform as a main DPS. One of the lineups that's very popular for her as a main DPS is, assume this is Era Rover, and then you run her with Ciaccona, do all of that. This team does very well in single target, doesn't do as well in AoE content, and doesn't deal as much damage as some of the other highest tier DPS teams in the game, but it still works. Then you have Iuno's capability where she's just going to be a buffer. You can use her in the JIYAN team over here for some mono arrow shenanigans. This team, by the way, does way better in Whimpering Wastes than the Cartethyia team that's going to have Arrow Rover, Cartethyia, Ciaccona. Right? That's an example of like where her use case is showing up even in mono arrow. And then of course, right, you have her performance as an Augusta buffer, and she's absolutely insane because of her ridiculous... Let me just see if I can find it over here. She just gives 40% amplification to all of Augusta's damage and all of her damage as well. This is why she actually performs well as a main DPS, because you get the full 10 stacks of this on both characters. So that makes Augusta feel really good in her teams. And then you even have the option of running like this fucking lineup, where you're running Spectral Frazzle and then buffing heavy attack damage in this team. Because Iuno, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? She also heals on top of all this shit. Where is it? Yeah, you can see how crazy her Forte circuit actually is. She's got healing over here, and she heals every couple of seconds for the team and help sustain that way. So you can see how this unit is filling in roles of damage amplification for Augusta. She also heals so that you can run her in like the JIYAN Ciaccona team. And then she also heals so she can run in this lineup as well. The unit is basically one of like the best versatile characters I think we've ever seen in the history of the game. And because of that, she heals, she buffs, has the best outro skill in the game. I don't really know where else to put her other than S. She's an incredibly valuable unit that is like, if there was like a must-pull character in terms of like team versatility and stuff, she's close to the top. So yeah, that's why she's going to go into S tier for me. Super versatile, can play as a DPS, supports a bunch of teams, has teams where her damage amp comes in handy, and also has teams where her healing comes in handy. I don't really know what else to say. Now, let's move on to her partner in crime, Augusta. And Augusta, for me, is going to pretty much comfortably be in the S tier as well. And the reason for that is simple. Augusta has an incredibly high ceiling team, right? By running with Iuno, because of that whole damage amp situation that I talked about before. But Augusta is also incredibly strong with one of the most affordable free-to-play options in the game. You have Mortefi over here. And believe me when I say this, you don't need Iuno to clear with Augusta. And if you have Augusta and Mortefi, you should be able to clear virtually all of the content in the game. You might have to try a little bit harder in Wuthering Waves just to make sure that you're timing her ultimate properly. But yeah, she works in holograms. I know we're not really mentioning those, but yeah, she slays in TOA and she destroys in Wuthering Waves if you do play her kit well with the right timing. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the main team that you can use. Naturally, you can upgrade by putting in a Iuno as well. We just talked about it. You even have like some weird other teams you can run with like other heavy attack buffers, but it's not really that worth it at this point. But I just think that her performance with Mortefi this is probably the most powerful free-to-play-esque team in the game, and it really doesn't, you know, you can even replace it with Farina too, even though it's a little bit more clunky. I will say that Augusta has a bit of a ceiling where she can't be used that well in quick swap. She can't really be used that well in dual DPS, but for most players, you kind of are just playing in like a 1-2-3 outro format, so nothing really is like too much of an issue over there. She's just a solid DPS, very, very, very self-sufficient with the Mortefi, has rooms to go Giga Premium with Iuno, but you don't really feel like there's anything missing along the way. So yeah, I don't really think that there's many complaints or concerns about this one. We're not going to spend too much time on her though, because it's not like she's the most complicated unit ever. So that's going to be Augusta. Now let's move on to Phrolova. Yeah, Phrolova's also going to be high rank. I might actually place her a little bit higher than Augusta. And the reason for that is simple. This Phrolova unit, we've already talked a little bit about her before, has so much versatility in her team comps, it's kind of insane. The only real limitation that she might feel like she has is the fact that you really want Cantarella on her team, because Cantarella directly provides the Echo skill casts as well as the healing to really help sustain her lineup. And of course, right, get off a bunch of those Hikari enhanced attacks. But once you have kind of like this duo going, good lord, there's so much versatility you can have in the teams. Like I said before, you can put in the Danjin. Like I said before, you can put in the Havoc Rover, right? And then, of course, you can also put in the Qiuyuan or the ROCCIA. So the fact that she has 4 characters that can go into, like, that third-person team slot is insane. However, you can also just straight up, like, run Phrolova with, like, a Shorekeeper, focus less on the attacks, but a bit more on, like, the buffs and that sort of thing. And honestly, you can make team comps like this work, too. Or again, you know, you have, like, Havoc Rover or something over here. You can make team comps work that way as well. It's really not that big of a deal not having Cantarella either, and Phrolova will still have the damage. She'll still have the ability to blow everything up. And the thing is that she's the queen of Wuthering Waves. She is the best Wuthering Waves character because of how her after sound, this mechanic over here that grants her both critical damage for every single stack, and then also grants her additional multipliers on her attacks. Yeah, that builds up very high over time as you're in game modes like Wuthering Waves, or even new floors 3 and 4 in the TOA, which naturally just take a bit longer because the enemies, there's more waves of enemies and they naturally have more HP because of those more waves. She ends up just building up a bunch of these over time, and well, she ends up being tier S in both game modes because of how the end game has shifted. So yeah, she is kind of like one of the biggest winners of the 2.x patch cycle. Has a bunch of different teams, not too much team strictness. And I would say on like the DPS side, works out very well. One thing I also didn't mention is the fact that she also has a full powered outro skill. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she has a full fucking powered outro skill that gives 20% havoc and 25% heavy attack amplification. So she can even function as sort of like a sub DPS that buffs people. So there's that possibility as well. So that only increases her versatility even more as time goes on. So hopefully, again, you're seeing why she's such a high value unit. A lot of them have been released recently. And it kind of makes the placement of these two, hopefully the placement of these two characters in B is becoming a lot more clear because we've been talking about how strong these other units are and how, you know, more affordable their teams are. Next up, we're going to be moving on to our first, not really our first, but kind of like another general team buffer. And this one's going to be Lupa. I'm going to be honest over here. Lupa's placement can either be an S or it can be in A. And I'm kind of leaning more towards S for now because she is without a doubt one of the strongest units in the game. However, her use cases are kind of limited by the fact that she needs 2 fusion characters on her team. But the reality is, essentially, once you're able to craft this core over here of Lupa with Brant, then you kind of are set for fusion for like the foreseeable future. You can run essentially any fusion DPS or even like a sort of fusion sub DPS like CHANGLI and completely blow up all the content in the game with this lineup. You can go ahead, you can put in Galbrena. And this is what a lot of people did on Galbrena's release because this was literally her best team. And then, like I said before, you can also put in an Encore. And then the team's results are also very, very, very competitive. And you can also think about it this way. Basically, any fusion character that ends up getting released in the future, even if they don't really benefit from the outro skill buffs, just like Galbrena, right? Because she doesn't really feel like she synergizes that well in this team. It's just Lupa's buffs carrying the performance. Pretty much any fusion character that you have in the future should reliably perform here, unless they're like either like a healer or they're, I don't know, like just a pure sub DPS that literally does no damage. And that's the reality. However, if you don't have Brant, then that's where stuff ends up being a little bit tricky for this unit, because there's no fusion healer in the game other than Brant, and he's a limited 5-star unit. And so if you don't have him, the value of Lupa kind of drops down very significantly because you lose the ability to really comfortably do mono fusion. There's some alternatives you can do. You can just play like sustainless and run comps like this. They can clear, but naturally, I feel like a lot of people like having a sustain. They kind of like having that safety net as they're doing their runs. But if you're free playing sustainless, then yeah, you can run even crazier comps with this unit. So I think that her versatility in fusion is definitely a strength, but the fact that she's restricted by fusion is also like a drawback. But in terms of overall performance and how she elevates other characters, she's definitely an S. However, I can see her being an A tier if you feel like that restriction on fusion is a little bit too high. But when she has the teams and she has the partners to work with her, she's incredibly strong. Some could say, to a degree, even overpowered because of how well she supports fusion. But we'll just put her in A for now because those restrictions can be a little bit high, and you kind of do really, really, really want Brant on her team to make the most out of her. And that, I think, is enough to peel her back from S tier. However, do keep in mind, like I said before, her buffs are incredibly good. You have things like, I mean, we could just read it over here. She'll give like 18% attack to the entire team as time goes on, 20% fusion damage to bosses, and then she also has things like 15% fusion resistance ignore. It helps a lot to have all these things and have all these tools. So that's just something to keep in mind. Her enhanced intro also does a shit ton of damage too. Yeah, that's almost like a 1000% multiplier. So she does have like some decent nukes in her kit as well. So that's going to be Lupa. Now let's go ahead and move on to our next character that we're going to be having over here. And that is, of course, going to be Cartethyia. Okay. So Cartethyia is a bit of a tricky situation. I would say her performance is kind of inherently tied to another unit, kind of similarly to Lupa. So if we're going to be holding Lupa back because of her reliance on Brant, I think that Cartethyia kind of needs to be held back by her reliance on Ciaccona, because that is one of the unfortunate realities of this unit. She kind of really does need Ciaccona to get the most out of her rotations and to not like overly extend them and to really kind of like feel good as a unit. Yes, you can solo with her, in some stages where the buffs do light up to allow it to be possible. However, we're kind of viewing this in like the team format and, you know, not like edging by in like 10-second clears. And believe me when I say this, you're not soloing shit in Whimpering Wastes. Yeah, you're fucking not. Yeah, it's just not happening, brother. So, like I said before, Whimpering Wastes is also going to be factored into the rankings over here. So that's why we're going to be kind of focusing on 3-person teams. Who the fuck cares if she can solo in the TOA if she can't solo in Whimpering Wastes? Like I said, we're factoring in all the different endgame modes over here. So we are thinking about a team. And with that in mind, like I said before, this character basically has this dynamic where they consume arrow erosion stacks and, well, they also have arrow erosion damage amplification, and they also have a mechanic on their ultimate where they deal more damage based on the number of arrow erosion stacks that they consume by using the ability, up to 5 stacks. And there's no real way to keep up reliable uptime without Giga extending your rotation without Ciaccona. Because guess what Ciaccona does, ladies and gentlemen? She goes ahead and applies 20 stacks of erosion with her ultimate. You cast her ultimate right before Cartethyia goes on field, and then you basically have infinite erosion stacks. So that's kind of like the dynamic that goes on. And when you don't have Ciaccona and you don't have like her arrow damage buffs, all of that, the best lineup you actually end up being able to use is like some weird shit with Sanhua. And while that does perform, it doesn't feel nearly at the same level as naturally having Ciaccona. The other thing is that this character is essentially glued to the hip with Arrow Rover, because Arrow Rover,
as we head toward our shared future,
as we've discussed many times, has the ability to double the number of erosion stacks that are on enemies, and Arrow Rover's weapon is so ridiculously strong for any Arrow team that it kind of feels really off trying to play Cartethyia at all if you don't have this 26% arrow damage amplification tied in. And that means that to play Cartethyia in a comfortable manner in, three-person team content, you need this character, and this character feels like shit to play. So it's kind of just like that. And then you also, if you're using Arrow Rover or you're using Cartethyia, well, guess what, guys? You can't use the other form of Rover on the other side. So that's another limitation that's in there. So we might see this loosened up in the future when there's like another debuff supporter, another negative status supporter that comes out. We'll just have to see how the kit and the cookies crumble over there. But for now, I would say her heavy reliance on other units, the restrictions that you have on Rover, the kind of like somewhat necessity that you have for Ciaccona, and the definite necessity that you have for Ciaccona when you're using her in Whimpering Wastes, it's a little bit rough for me to put her in S tier because there's a lot of team reliance over there. And it's not necessarily like you have like a bunch of teams you can play this unit on. It's kind of just like 1 or 2. And there's not a lot of variability there. So yeah, that's where I'm going to place her. But once again, she does have the highest damaging team in the game. That is for certain. And it's also one of the most affordable teams in the game. But that means that you're also tying your Rover to that team. And I think that is enough of a weakness of its own. Her best teams involve using a form of Rover. A little bit rough. All right, now let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about Ciaccona. And I think it's safe to say that this unit is either at the top of A or actually potentially in S. Because like I said before, Cartethyia feels like she needs Ciaccona, but Ciaccona, without a doubt, does not feel like she needs Cartethyia. I think that is the realization that a lot of people are having right now following the release of some other characters, because Ciaccona is one of the more general arrow buffers in the game. So first and foremost, one of the big tools that she has is, of course, the fact that simply from performing her basic attack chain, she gives a 24% arrow damage bonus to the entire team. And because she applies arrow erosion so rapidly and so massively, she also gets to use this amazing set, Gusts of Welkin. And she's kind of the only user of this set in the game. This buffs arrow damage on the team by another 15%. So she has at a baseline just 39% arrow damage built into her Sonata set and then built into her kit. That's pretty damn fucking good for just like an S0, R0 character. That's not even factoring in her weapon that gives you other bonuses as well, naturally, right? And then she goes ahead. She also has like a really fast rotation. It's almost like Sanhua level 2, just to be able to get out all of her stuff. And then she even has like multi-rolled abilities to apply Spectral Frazzle. And then also, she can also apply arrow erosion too. So she works with sometimes on Spectral Frazzle teams in like Whimpering Wastes. She also works with, again, every single arrow team because of her amazing buffs, and then she's also the main Cartethyia support because she applies so many erosion stacks. You can kind of see what's going on over here. Second, when it comes to this unit, Ciaccona, you have so many teams for her to work on, it's ridiculous. So naturally, you have this team that I talked about over here. That's going to be the Cartethyia XL, right? Then you have this team where you can replace Cartethyia with Iuno if you want to run it, and then you can play Iuno as a main DPS. It doesn't do as much damage as Cartethyia, but that's an option too. You also have the ability to run this one as well if you want to have, I guess, like a little bit more healing or more like critical buffs as opposed to Arrow Rover's damage amp. That's an option too. Then you also got this lineup where you're running Ciaccona, where you're running like Iuno as the healer, and then you have JIYAN coming in. And this is the best Whimpering Waste arrow team in the game. And believe me when I say this, this team is so much better than running Cartethia's arrow team in Whimpering Waste. It's actually insane. This team might be one of the best Whimpering Waste teams just available, period, because of everything that it provides. So that's a crazy lineup that you have over there. And then, God forbid, if you have Qiuyuan's S3, this is his best team too. Yes, if you have Qiuyuan's S3, then this is also the best Qiuyuan team that you can run. So that's like another thing that's happening over here. You're probably beginning to see, yeah, this character is kind of like the arrow version of Lupa, and she feels like she also has like less sort of, you know, restrictions along that line. And then naturally, right, you've got some weird Spectrofrazzle shit that you can run over here because you can also apply that debuff across her liberation. So that's kind of like it. She's got a lot of use cases, but the unfortunate side of that is that she doesn't really have a lot of free-to-play teams, if that makes sense. She's like a premium character that you might have pulled her for Cartethyia, and it turns out that she has way more use cases down the road and ends up being usable with so many of the other units that ended up coming out. And so I think because of that, I think maybe due to the fact that she doesn't really have any free-to-play teams, she kind of requires a bunch of other premium units to work. I think that I might have to actually put her a little bit lower because of that, just because of, you know, the fact that there's not really any super budget affordable lineups that she can run, but because she is kind of like the best in slot on so many of these arrow teams, we're gonna be placing her pretty high up in A. So yeah, that's what we're gonna run with, because believe me when I say this, you are not using John Shin, Alto, or Yang Yang with her unless you're like experimenting with like dog shit teams. That's what I mean by not having budgetary units, because somebody said, whoa, doesn't every arrow unit work with her? Yeah, you're not using John Shin, Yang Yang, or fucking Alto with this character. Let's just stop lying for a second over here. All right, but yeah, that's gonna be the placement of Ciaccona. Now let's move on to the elephant in the room. This character's like either a C or a D, brother. I'm just going to be real with you. Yeah, this unit is, pull value-wise, one of the worst pulls I think any character, any person can make in the game. This unit feels like she's unnecessary, because the dynamic that I've talked about before is pretty simple. To make ZANI work, you want Phoebe on her team, because Phoebe provides all the blaze, all the helical ember, the spectrofrazzle stacks required to let this character actually use their kit. And the reality is that Phoebe has a sub DPS and a main DPS mode, right? Where she can either use absolute litany and then start becoming a main DPS, or she can use utter confession and then become the spectrofrazzle applier. The unfortunate part about this situation is that you need Phoebe to make ZANI not feel like a piece of shit, but if you have Phoebe, you can just play Phoebe as the main DPS instead because she has the absolution mode. So it's kind of like a problem over here by pulling this character that's solved by pulling this character, but then you already have the solution to the baseline Spectro DPS problem in the first place. However, there is a bit of a distinction to make over here, and that's why ZANI isn't going to be in D. Phoebe sucks cock in Whimpering Waste. She's fucking terrible, and the only way to make Phoebe playable in Whimpering Waste is to pull Ciaccona, because then Phoebe will be able to actually have Spectrofrazzle stacks to deal a level of damage to the enemies. And so because of that, ZANI can come in and make Phoebe feel a lot better in Whimpering Waste by allowing her to go into confession mode, and then ZANI can kind of go in and then swing on the enemies. But in TOA, guys, it's one of the most unnecessary things I've ever seen, because I can just go in to the TOA right now, and it has an absurdly strong buff to enemies when you use Phoebe's team. The enemies gain 30% defense. And believe me when I say this, I just ran Phoebe's team in Absolution mode, the DPS mode, and just easily fucking cleared this last stage. And you can see over here, when inflicted with negative statuses, the enemy's defense is increased by 10% and their attack is increased by 10%. This is a negative status team, and it easily cleared with 3 stars. So it's kind of like the only reason why you would ever reasonably pull ZANI is just to, like, have a Spectro team for Wuthering Waves. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But there's never been, like, a need for, like, a specific attribute in WuWa. And it turns out that's usually just a couple of enemies with, like, a resistance to another attribute. And so you oftentimes don't even need to use the Spectro team in the game mode. It's a little bit rough. And I just think that this character has so little actual practical use cases unless you just really like her actual gameplay. But pull value-wise, it's almost non-existent, brother. There's just so little value from a pull perspective. And that's kind of like the truth of it. And unfortunately, some people are going to be upset by this, but I think a lot of ZANI owners currently will tell you that she's one of the biggest regrets that they have on their account. Because you kind of are just questioning why you even got her in the first place, why you spent all those pulls for a problem they already had solved by pulling this unit. Spectro damage. So, yeah. That's going to be where I put her for now. Because she is a good Wuthering Waves character and one of the only Spectro Wuthering Waves teams currently, that's the only reason why she's being put into C. But if there's another Spectro character that comes out that feels just better than her, or JNHSI gets her best in slot support, then yeah, she's going into D. But for now, we will recognize her Wuthering Waves capability and just keep her in C. All right, now let's move on to Cantarella. And we've already had a bit of a conversation regarding this unit, right? We've kind of deemed her as the main sort of Phrolova enabler. And with Phrolova being one of the best DPS characters in the game, that's going to give Cantarella some value. The unfortunate part is that Cantarella only has 2 characters that she works with on the roster. It is this one, and then it is also this one. But the unfortunate reality is that while Cantarella JNHSI is one of JNHSI's best teams, it's not like that great of a team. Because Cantarella has a split outro skill that's split between Havoc and Resonant skill damage. If Cantarella was like 50% Resonant skill, then oh boy, we'd have a conversation to talk about over here with her being JNHSI's best in slot. But for right now, she's kind of like a side grade to ZHEZHI that deals like a little bit more damage, but it's not really anything that crazy. And so we're kind of rating her as a sub DPS healer hybrid thing that only works with 2 characters in the game. And so because of that, I feel like I can't really rate her that high. I kind of want to put her in B, but she does make Phrolova really, really, really good. But she just has so few use cases on the roster outside of that team. And so I don't want people to go in pulling her and then expecting to get like a bunch of different lineups out of her. You don't have a lot of overall versatility, but she is really, really, really good in the Phrolova team. She works with Carlotta though. Yes, technically. And you want to know who else works with Carlotta? I guess technically Brant, but nobody's running that fucking team. Yes, yes. She has 25% skill amp, so she can technically work with any skill damage character, but not really. Not like really. All right, so that's where she's gonna go. Again, she provides a lot of very unique things. She has coordinated attack, she has buffs, and then of course she has like actually a lot of healing that's built into her kit. But like I said, she doesn't really excel that much in the damage department. It's not like she's going in and then nuking enemies like crazy. She also has one of like the most dog shit play styles I've ever seen in the game. I mean, I think I might as well just like demonstrate like how dog shit she feels to play real fast for you, because I hate using this unit. You like go in, right? Oh great. All right, well, we're not gonna be able to demonstrate a lot of her stuff because I guess she just died. But this entire sequence over here, where she like uses her heavy attack and then starts doing all this shit, oh, I despise it. I'm telling you, she's got like the lowest visual clarity in the game. I have no idea what's going on when I'm like on the field using her. She literally feels like you're like lagging. That's probably what I feel like. I'm lagging when I play her. So yeah, that's just my personal take on her play style. I think a lot of people don't really like it that much either. But again, that's just a personal thing. I'm not going to let it influence the rankings too much. All right, that is Cantarella. Now let's talk about another sub DPS healing hybrid over here, and that's going to be Brant. Yeah, he's really fucking good. Yeah, Brant is a character that I think has definitely shown value over time. He's playable as a DPS, main DPS. He's playable as, obviously, the enabler for Mono Fusion. He's also just playable as like a regular sub DPS that ends up buffing fusion and resonance skill damage. And the end result is that this unit is probably one of the best characters in the game. However, a lot of his value is tied to him having his weapon. And if you have his weapon, brother, he's like close to like here at the top. But if you don't have his weapon, naturally he's a little bit lower. I would say that as like an S0R1 character, he's one of the best investments that you can make in the game. And he's comparable at a very high level to Iuno. However, I would say Iuno's buffs are a little bit more naturally spreadable because she has like a 50% heavy attack amp just straight up, and then Brant's is split across fusion and resonance skill. But this also means that Brant also has the ability to just straight up outright support fusion. And that's Brant's split outro skill is actually one of the main reasons for why this Galbrena team over here actually works pretty well. Because if his was only 50% resonance skill damage, then we'd have a bigger concern about actually buffing Galbrena's damage. But because it's split across fusion, she still ends up getting like a 20% amp. And so that's actually where his outro skill being less strong, right, is actually having some level of benefit in this lineup. So that's just something to keep in mind over here. This guy provides way more healing. He also provides shielding, and I think a lot of... Okay, I might as well just demonstrate how much damage this character does at S0R1 so you guys can see literally what I'm talking about. We'll just run this team real fast in the TOA, and I'll just show you how much damage he's capable of. He'll get one of the first live gameplay demonstrations because, well... Let's just see what he does in the TOA real fast. And yeah, we'll use a Galbrena lineup too. Just make sure all the characters have their stuff. All right. And let's see this. Okay, that was a little bit weird. I've never seen Brant's attack just fizzle like that before, but it is what it is. Okay, that was I don't know how to describe that other than that was a fucking bug. Yeah, his intro just straight up did not hit. And then we didn't parry the grab. Yeah, that was a mess. That's some bullshit right there. Now it hit. Now it hit. Okay, there we go. And this rotation's gonna make a lot more sense now. 324k.
Speak of the devil.
324k on that attack, brother.
Please, I've come to send you to your
what
grave.
The fuck? What the hell? He's low-key, he's doing the most damage on the team. And that's what I mean. It's like you got like Galbrena over here. You got Lupa hitting a nice 100k on that ability. But yeah, I mean, he ends up being at S0R1 once again one of the highest damaging hybrids I've ever seen in the game. And I think Kuro actually made him a little bit overpowered. Just in terms of like what he can actually do. Because I think they wanted a male character to sell. But in a similar vein, I think they kind of underestimated what he was actually going to be able to do in his teams. And yeah, you can see over here, this team is, again, this is just S0R1 characters in the endgame.
Fight fire with fire.
And it's kind of unethical how much damage this team is doing. He has the second lowest pulls. Well, yeah, there's... again, you can kind of see why they might have juiced his kit up a little bit too much. So, if you want a sub-DPS male who actually does damage, this is what it looks like. And with the buffs, we eventually end up doing like 420k. And then we end up with one of the most devilish clear times you can get in this game mode. 0-3-22. Yeah, again. Galbrena's also doing a lot because of the amplification that's going on over there. It's a shield buff for her, but I don't think we can look past the fact that bro's dropping like 320k anchors for fun. So, yeah. I would say because I don't want to use his S0R1 rankings as too much of an influence, I'll drop him down to A for now to kind of like not factor in having his weapon, but do recognize that he will be S rank tier if you decide to invest in him, build tie-breaking courage, do all of that stuff, and get his weapon. He's like up fucking here. But without the weapon, I'm not going to go ahead and say that, you know, he's too high, because his weapon is extremely tailor-made for him, because he has a very restricted set of stats that he wants. He wants a fuck ton of ER, and he also wants like crit and basic attack damage. And that's just, there's not a lot of weapons that really work at all for him to get him that stat profile, because this, it's got 77% ER on its main stat. There's nothing else like this in the game. And that's a little bit unfortunate for him.
I'll play my role to the...
All right, so that's where Brant is going to be based off of the discussion that we had. Now it's time for us to talk a little bit about Phoebe. And Phoebe is a difficult character for me to rank. The reason for that is, A, she's multi-rolled. She's a technically good sub-DPS, but it's also like, again, she's supporting ZANI. So it's like a little bit tricky. I think Phoebe, based off the fact that she has a very affordable team that we just looked at before, right? I think it was in the TOA menu. You saw me clearing that Cartethyia ape stage with Spectral Rover. It's a very good free-to-play team. However, she's so bad in Whimpering Waste, it's unbelievable. This is by far, with like Spectral Rover and the Shorekeeper team, it might be the worst Whimpering Waste team in the game, because she needs Spectral Frazzle on the enemies to deal any damage at all. And unfortunately, in multi-wave content, the enemies don't have Spectral Frazzle on them. So you can pull Ciaccona to alleviate some of her issues, and Ciaccona works well to reapply that Spectral Frazzle on all the enemies, but then her damage really isn't like that high, because she really doesn't have, like, Ciaccona doesn't really buff her damage. So it's kind of like a tricky situation over here for me to really judge her character, because she also has like the whole like sub DPS mode, but that has complete reliance on ZANI. You're never using Confession Phoebe in any circumstance other than to support ZANI. That's a fact. And it's like, I guess she's ZANI's best support, but then she doesn't support any other unit in the game in Confession mode. So I'm not going to call that like amazing versatility. She also deals dog shit damage in Confession mode. You might as well like not even build her and just max out ER because it's so bad. It's a tricky thing. I think she's actually eligible for B tier because of how weak she is in Whimpering Waste without having like a specialized partner. And I think that's the way that we might have to go about it, especially seeing Galbrena in B tier over here. I think I'm going to put Phoebe in B tier because, yes, she does have a good TOA team that's very affordable, but you can't take that team into WuWa, and you need 5-star characters to essentially re-enable her in Whimpering Waste. You either pull ZANI and then put her in Confession mode, or you pull Ciaccona so she can play in Absolution. And it's sort of, I don't really know. I don't think it's that valuable. So that's where I'm going to put Phoebe in for now. It's a bit of a rough one. Very limited team options, and while they are affordable, they're not really that good without other more limited team options. All right, next up, we're going to have the legendary Montelli family assassin. We've got Carlotta. And I think the reality of Carlotta is that she is the destroyer of Tower of Adversity. She is the destroyer of the Tower of Adversity, but I think that her Whimpering Waste performance does leave a slight bit to desire. I do think that she can actually regularly clear Whimpering Waste, but you do have to try a good bit harder to like time her abilities, make sure that you're only using her Liberation's final shot when there's like a fresh wave. You do have to like play her in an alternative way to make her WuWa performance strong, but she can actually get some decent results in Whimpering Waste. I've been able to regularly get clearable scores with her, but in the same way, I can have like some slight variations in RNG that kind of like fuck me over, and then I'm like 200, 300 points short of a clear. So her TOA performance, like I said, is so consistent, so easy, and so almost like automatic that she's going to be high tier because of that. I think she's going to be in the top of A because of that. But in WuWa, she does have like a lot of vulnerabilities that I think have been exposed over time. So just with that in mind, I think I'm going to place her at the top in A. Like I said, she's got CC. She also has a shit ton of single target damage, a respectable amount of AoE. But she also has, I think, the most consistent rotation in the game. I don't think it's possible with enough practice to fuck up the rotation in her team with like Shorekeeper and ZHEZHI. And the thing is, you only need like one ER roll when you have her with ZHEZHI, And it's sort of, you know, that makes her kind of easy to build. And I think you can get a decent amount out of her in Wuthering Waves. And then, of course, she steamrolls TOA. So, with that in mind, we look at who's in the S tier right now. I think it's fine to put her at top of 8. That's my personal opinion. I think it's fine to put her at the top of 8. That's where she's going to go. And now we got ROCCIA. This character is dog shit. I'm sorry. She has been completely, utterly, like, there is no use case for her in the game anymore. With Qiuyuan's release, she has been completely swept to the wayside. And the thing is, I don't think anybody cares except JNHSI, because he S6 the unit. But right now, I don't think anyone's really that sad. I don't think anyone is sad at all that she's now considered one of the most dog shit units in the game. Because playing her is hell. I have never seen a unit where I've been more frustrated doing her regular rotation because she has no interruption resistance. She gets smacked out of the air by a light breeze, and then your entire fucking rotation is completely cooked. I have never seen a unit at S0 that feels so fucking bad to play, and I'm actually genuinely glad that Kuro made the active decision to basically just rotate her out of the game. Because this is the reality over here. The character essentially is a one-trick pony. She has, like, half of, like, the Echo skill synergy, and that's why Qiuyuan is better than her, because she has one additional Echo skill that's in her kit. And then her main bread and butter is the fact that she can give a shitty attack buff of fucking 200, which is, like, non-existent. It's literally worse than Sanhwa's S6. It's that fucking bad. You also need 70% crit rate to even make this work, and 130% ER to even, like, rotate properly. Like, getting a build like this on this character is fucking nuts. 130% ER and then over 70% crit rate? Oh my god. It's so hard to do, and then she does no damage on top of it. Add that to the fact that her outro skill is heavy attack, or sorry, havoc damage, 20%, and then basic attack, 25%. It's like, this unit has two teams right here. You use her in the Phrolova lineup over here, but then Qiuyuan is better than her. So that's kind of like, that's really like, there's no reason to play her or pull her now. And then the other team that she has is fucking this one, where you run ROCCIA and CAMELLYA, along with Shorekeeper. But the thing is, ROCCIA rotates so slowly, and her buffs are so bad, that, like, low-key, you can just run this team instead and actually genuinely get better results. Because Sanhwa can effectively have no rotation time, and that has some bigger benefits that you can actually realize in gameplay. So even in the teams where this character is supposed to do something, she gets replaced by a 4-star, you don't lose any performance, and then in her Giga Premium team, where you thought she was irreplaceable, she ends up getting replaced by a fucking arrow, heavy attacking swords guy. I'm not gonna lie. She is so low value right now, I have to say, she is, like, one of the only, like, do not pull this fucking unit in the game. There is no reason to pull her in any context following the release of Qiuyuan. Absolutely none at all. Stay away from this unit. Stay away from her gameplay. Absolute complete waste of time. She's only going to cause you sorrow as you play this fucking game. And I'm telling you this as somebody that has one of the most disgusting ROCCIA builds on the server. Bro, she has like 35% heavy attack damage at base. These disgusting stats. Like, really, like, genuinely, look at these echo rolls. I have, like, this shit. I have stuff like this, and I'm telling you the character is dog shit. I have, like, this 5 out of 5 piece, and I'm telling you, the character is dog shit. She's fucking bad. So, yeah, I also have her weapon, too. And again, she's fucking bad. So, yeah, just take it from me. This character, stay away from her. She's fucking radioactive. There's no reason to pull her anymore after the release of Qiuyuan. And she, again, you preferred using Sanhwa over here with CAMELLYA anyways. Just get out. Just get out. Now that we've got that one settled, we're done with all the 2.0 units. Now it's time for us to take a revisit back to version 1.4. And of course, the partner that we're supposed to have for ROCCIA. So, CAMELLYA, in my opinion, is a very tricky unit to talk about. Because I would dare say that CAMELLYA kind of has been fucked by ROCCIA. The reasoning that I use is this. Every single character kind of has a best-in-slot partner that they're supposed to work with, right? And The reality is that a lot of people have gotten a really good partner. Augusta, for example, has a really good partner in Iuno because of that heavy attack damage buff, all of that. Galbrena has a really good partner in Qiuyuan because of that echo skill damage amplification. Similarly, Carlotta has a really good partner in ZHEZHI because of the interactions going on over here. ROCCIA was meant to be CAMELLYA's ZHEZHI. She was meant to be CAMELLYA's Galbrena, or CAMELLYA's Qiuyuan. She was meant to be like CAMELLYA's Phrolova in terms of how well she supported her. But this unit is so bad, like I said before, because of all the reasons I listed out, that she's oftentimes replaced by Sanhua in most lineups, because Sanhua just feels so much better to play, and then she also has a basic attack damage amplification built in. But that's the thing. ROCCIA was meant to be the best in slot teammate, but then doesn't necessarily perform. So it feels like CAMELLYA's ceiling has been like artificially lowered by how dog shit her best in slot sub DPS is. And my opinion is that CAMELLYA desperately needs like a version of Qiuyuan or a version of Iuno to feel like she's at the same level as all these other characters who are able to leverage these buffs. For example, she needs somebody that gives 50% basic attack damage amplification and doesn't have a kit as awful as fucking ROCCIA's. That's essentially what she needs. A 50% basic attack damage amplifier, and their kit can't be as dog shit as ROCCIA's. And until she gets that, I think that she's going to be falling a bit behind. There is a reason why, with the existence of Iuno in this team, right? JIYAN just does way more fucking damage than CAMELLYA. He just does because he has access to all of these powerful new tools. This is his first 5-star limited team. He performs essentially way better than CAMELLYA in any context at all. And there's not really anything he can do. And there's not really anything she can do about it because she doesn't have a better buffer. The best she has is fucking ROCCIA. However, she still remains one of the most powerful and consistent Whimpering Waste characters in the game, but I do have to say it feels like she has fallen a little bit behind in the TOA because all these other characters have gotten such better partners. However, again, her performance in WuWa is still really, really, really good, so I'm thinking about still keeping her in A. And she arguably does have a really, really fun playstyle. But because, again, because of this pairing that we have going on over here and how dog shit this unit is, she's not going to be ranked that much higher. This is probably the most I could do. And it would be reasonable for me, honestly, to put her in, like, B tier. But we're going to keep her in bottom of A for now. She's still good. Very, very good in WuWa. Still clears with Sanhua into, like, I run Sanhua with her in WuWa all the time and then clear into Havoc Resistance because of everything that she's capable of. But in TOA, you can definitely feel her falling behind damage-wise, and it's because this character sucks fucking ass. She's so bad. Again, she still clears TOA. She still performs exceptionally in WuWa. This is not like her being like a dog shit unit or anything. It's just her ceiling isn't as high as a lot of the other units that will be ranking above her because she doesn't have the sub DPS tools to reach the ceiling of those other units. And again, it's all about potential over here with this with this argument that we're making. All right, that's going to be CAMELLYA. Now let's move on and take a look at, well, everyone's favorite. We got Shorekeeper. Yeah, she's still at the top. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she's still at the top because it just so turns out she always ends up coming back when it comes to top lineups in the game. Some of the highest DPS lineups that we have are the two teams that I have over here. Oh, whoopsies. And what do you notice across these two teams? Yeah, Shorekeeper is on them. And this is the thing. A lot of people thought that with the release of more healers in the game, characters like the Brants, the Arrow Rovers, the whoever's, the Cantarellas, that Shorekeeper's viability was going to naturally drop. However, she's featured in the highest DPS teams in the game because, well, sub DPSs in general seem to have gotten a good bit stronger. And with her being a general buffer that works alongside that other ultra buff that people have, well, her ability to provide crit as well on top of it, 12.5% crit rate and 25% critical damage, they're too good to really pass up for lineups like this, lineups like that, so on and so forth. And then you factor that in with, I mean, what else do I even need to talk about? She has like a mini nuke as well. Very fast concerto generation if you decide to use variation, which again is comparable, if not better, than her actual signature when you get variation to R5. She's got great free-to-play options. I have like her S1 for fun, but it's like absolutely unnecessary. It doesn't improve any actual damage at all. Again, her crit buffs are amazing. And she has some of the most variable builds you can run, where you can put more HP on her for healing, or you run crit damage, or even like put in shit like a spectral damage 3 cost for fun as well to improve her damage on her enhanced intro. She's just a good unit. She's been a good unit, and there's a reason why this is a suggestion on every single beginner banner. Get a copy of her, then get variation 2, and just call it a day, because you have a cornerstone of teams in the past, teams in the present, and teams in the future too. So everyone should have her on their account. I don't think that there's too much of an argument over there. We're not going to spend too much time shooting the wind here. All right, now we have ZHEZHI. And I'm not going to lie, ZHEZHI has kind of fallen a little bit to the wayside. And the reason for that is simple. ZHEZHI kind of only works with 2 characters in the game, JNHSI and Carlotta. And while she does absolutely obliterate shit with Carlotta and TOA, this character is so unforgivably bad in Whimpering Waves, it's unbelievable. She is one of the most single target oriented like damage types I've ever seen. And it's just like, bro, she does nothing in WuWa. She's literally just there for an outro skill buff to give to Carlotta and WuWa. And for JNHSI teams, again, she's good with JNHSI and single target, but if you try to run this lineup in Whimpering Waste, you will die. Let me just show you which lineup I'm talking about. If you try to run this team in WuWa, where you have JNHSI and then you have G-Jaw, you're gonna want to uninstall the game. I'm gonna be real with you here. You will want to uninstall the game playing this in Whimpering Waste, because it just is not even gonna get close to clearing. And so, while she is like a good TOA sort of support because of that single target focus, like her absolute uselessness in Whimpering Waste is something that I think really needs to be factored in. Because yeah, she's dog shit in that game mode. YINLIN is actually better because YINLIN has at least more AoE application that she can do, and at least like a faster forte rotation. This character is like having like a -1 team slot. She lessens ER requirements though. Yeah, I get that, but she literally does nothing else. She's an ER battery and an outro skill, and basically nothing else in WuWa. And that's a little bit rough. So yeah, again, she works well in TOA, but does nothing else other than that. So I can't really rank her that high. You're clearing in spite of ZHEZHI. When you do WuWa clears, you're clearing in spite of her, not with her assistance. All right, next up, ZhangLi. Yeah, I mean, he's probably like at the bottom of, he's probably either at like the bottom of B or he's probably in C. And the reason for this is simple. If CAMELLYA's getting brought down because of her sub DPS and the ceiling that he has on his damage output, ZhangLi is being brought down even more because YINLIN is like equally as bad. YINLIN is like equally as bad. And the situation kind of is that he doesn't even have a Sanhua to work with. If ZhangLi had like a Sanhua, where it was like a really, really good liberation buffer that did like 38%, he would be faring a lot better. But right now, all he has is YINLIN, and YINLIN is one of the most dog shit units in the fucking game. All I really need to do is just talk about how power crept sub DPSs are in general. And the way they'll do it is very simple. Let's just take a look at YINLIN over here and look at the motion value of her liberation. We have a 125 resonance cost. What the fuck is this? This is like not even 1,000%. It's not even 1,000% motion value. This is like 800. It's like 800 fucking % on this ability. And then you just look over here at Iuno and you're like, okay, what's going on here, Kuro Games? Her baseline one is like 1.1k, 1,100% over here. And then she has 40% damage amp built into her kit. So it's like even more than that. And so it's kind of just like, why is it so bad? Then you look at Ciaccona over here too, right? Who's like,
but I doubt they can predict.
That's also 1,100%. And then you got all these other ticks for an additional 120. So this ability is like 1,200%. So that's another one too, where it's just like the damage is higher. Why? I don't really know. And then naturally, right, I already talked about Branto over here. Oh, you want to see how much this anchor does? Avert your fucking eyes. 47 plus times 2 plus 94.4 plus 187 times 2 plus 1,322. Then you even got Phoebe over here, right? 401%, but then she has increased damage multiplier by 200. This is what I mean. It's just, what about ROCCIA? ROCCIA does comparable damage. That's why the character is also dog shit. Yeah, this basically is similar damage to a YINLIN ultimate. Yeah, so you can kind of see what's going on over here. This character is dog ass. Sorry, wait, this is the YINLIN section, or this is the Zhang Liao section. Zhang Liao is held back immensely by the fact that he doesn't have like a Sanhua for liberation damage, and YINLIN's kind of his only option, and YINLIN is like literally like worse than Sanhua and worse than Amortiphy. So it's just, he's never going to be good until, and remember what I said before about CAMELLYA? Remember what I said before about CAMELLYA needing like a Iuno level outro skill for basic attacks? Zhang Liao needs a Iuno level outro skill for liberation damage. Just 50% liberation damage amp, and then they just aren't dog shit like YINLIN. And then he'll do a lot better. But you're beginning to see a lot of the 1.x DPSs, I don't even think it's their kits or their gameplay and stuff that's holding them back. It's their dog shit sub DPS option that is entirely holding them back. Because ROCCIA is killing CAMELLYA. And this unit, oh, she is destroying Zhang Liao. I think Zhang Liao deserves to be in B though, because bro still clears the TOA, and bro still clears Wuthering Waves. And I'm not gonna lie, he's actually one of my... Fuck it, we could just... I'll just show you right now what he can do in WuWa. I'll just show you what he's capable of in WuWa, because he's like surprisingly actually kind of good. We're actually gonna run Verena, YINLIN, Zhang Liao over here. And I think that on first sight, and I think that this will actually have a decent overall chance of clearing. I'm not even joking. I think it'll actually have a decent chance of clearing. All right, we got some Moonlit Cloud set going. String Master over here. Zhang Liao. Okay, we got some good stuff going on. Wait a second. I need to activate my Verena S1. Finally, I got it. And then for the buff over here, I'm actually just going to use Plunderers. Let's give this a bit of a try and see how it goes.
The fruit of
variable elimination.
Tear them to pieces. My field of expertise. Back off.
Variable elimination. Pierce.
Boom, we already got his lib.
Exploit. Prompt.
Okay, I'm getting my ass beat over here. We kind of just got cooked by these guys real bad.
Tear them to pieces. I've had enough. Get lost.
So, big skill issue over there.
Cleave it.
How's our clear looking like overall?
Luminous energy. Tear them to pieces.
Variable elimination. All shall reveal itself. Reconfiguration. Complete overall.
Tear them to pieces. Bask in the
Honestly,
sunlight.
it's looking a lot better.
Fruit of evolution. Tear them to pieces. That's strength. It's our curtain call. My field.
Variable elimination. Pierce through the stars.
As you can see, right, this team on side 1 is actually in... This looks actually pretty good for, like, clearable territory. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Tear them to pieces.
And naturally, I think I can make it a little bit better with, like, Shorekeeper. But I'm surprised at how this one is doing. So this is why, like, I'm not gonna go ahead and say that this team is, like, actually, like, awful or terrible, right? Like, you can clearly see where it's...
All shall reveal itself.
And that's with insane skill issue at the start of the run over there. Oh, yeah. Okay, all right. We might... Okay, yeah, we easily got 25k with Giga skill issue at the start. So it's like, yeah, that gets, like, passable runs, too. You only need, like, 2.25, actually. So take out some of the skill issue at the start with a purple token and Verena and YINLIN. it's getting like 2.8K on side 1. And I think that's not bad. That's actually pretty good. With 1.x echoes and like, again, fucking YINLIN. And then we got beat the hell out of us at the start. That's why I don't think he's like that bad of a unit. And I think it's YINLIN that's holding him back over here. So based off of that WuWa performance, I think it's safe for us to put him at least in B tier, right? I think it's safe for us to do that. I don't think I'm being very unreasonable doing that after that gameplay demonstration. Okay, so that's where he's going to be. Now, let's talk about the next character in the 1.x arc over here. We got CHANGLI. And I'm going to be a little bit unfortunate with you. She's kind of not that great right now. And I think the reasoning that I'm going to use for it is she kind of has like one team in the game. And she's also been recalibrated in that one team that she has. So let's just put her in B for now. And okay, Augusta, shut the fuck up. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about over here. So this is kind of the reality. CHANGLI has one team in the game right now. She has one team in the game. And that is in Mono Fusion. And while she is playable in dual DPS, most people aren't playing her with quick swaps, doing all of that stuff. Most people are actually running her in this team and just doing 1, 2, 3 rotations. And that's the best team that she currently has. The unfortunate part about this is that Brant and Lupa are the best 2 characters on this team. And CHANGLI is actually the slot that gets replaced. You can replace CHANGLI with Encore and get very similar results. You can replace CHANGLI with Qixia and then get similar results. You can then replace CHANGLI again with Galbrena and then get the best overall results with this team. And the end result is kind of like, unless you're going to play this character in dual DPS, I'm not going to lie. I think she belongs right next to CHANGLI and a little bit below Galbrena over here. Some can make an argument for her being in C tier. Because right now, it's sort of just like every team that's her best in slot has a better replacement for her. And so it's kind of just, I don't really know what her use case is nowadays unless you basically want to put more work into the team's rotation to deal like less damage than other teams. But we said Galbrena isn't worth it because CHANGLI can do it. Exactly. That's the point, is that these characters are all kind of like interchangeable, replaceable, and they all only have like 1 or 2 teams. That's it. They're not like characters like Iuno or Phrolova, right? Where they can be slotted into a bunch of different lineups. They're not like characters like Ciaccona that can be slotted into a bunch of lineups. And it's not like CHANGLI is like this magical unit that goes in and then like trivializes TOA like a Carlotta. There's no like real strategic benefit or like real like insane benefit that comes from having this character on your account. Other than you can now have more quick swap teams where you can decide to play the game more intensively, but it's also something that a lot of people aren't going to do. So it's like you can also play these other some of these other characters in quick swap as well. So it's like that's not really like an argument either. So I can't reasonably say yes, CHANGLI is going to add a lot to your account. Could you reasonably say that? Could you reasonably say that pulling CHANGLI changes everything? Does pulling CHANGLI drastically alter or give you more capabilities? What does it do? She will work with everyone. Okay. Now people are just lying because they like her swimsuit skin. So yeah, she doesn't really change anything. And yes, you can play her in quick swap, but if you don't, she's straight up just a worse option in every single team. And you can play a bunch of other characters in quick swap as well. I'm not going to be out here telling you that this character is a high value pull, because she's one of the furthest things from a high value pull. Because it's, again, what other top meta team does she have other than this one? What does she have other than this one? There's nothing. There's literally nothing. And then you replace her with Galbrena, and then the team does more damage. So, like, how am I, like, what argument are people even making over here that she's, like, a high-value pull? I don't get it. There is no argument over here about her being a high-value pull. What? Are there going to be people bringing up this team now? Guys, we're in 2025. We're almost at the end of 2025. This is not really like a reason to pull CHANGLI. This is not a reason to pull CHANGLI. Let's just be entirely real over here. Are you guys gonna talk about this dual DPS? This team is dog shit. You play this team in quick swap for it to deal like a normal amount of damage, but not even like an exceptional amount of damage. It's like a somewhat normal amount of damage. I'm not gonna lie to an audience and say that she's a high value pull, because she's not. And again, because she has so many other options, and because these are the actual high value characters in the Mono Fusion team, I can't go ahead and rank CHANGLI high. Because yes, this team is good in TOA. This team is good in WuWa. But you want to know who's doing the most work in TOA and WuWa? It's these two units. It's these two guys. These are the individuals that are doing all of the work in that team. CHANGLI's kind of like the odd one out. There's a reason why these are the core, and then you replace her with every variation of Mono Fusion. And so because of that, again, I'm going to put her over here. This doesn't mean she's a bad character. It just means that there are pretty much universally better options to pull in the game. A lot of better options to pull in the game compared to her. And that's kind of just the reality of the situation. It's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. All right, now let's talk a bit about JNHSI. Yeah, she's kind of not that good either now, ladies and gentlemen. She's not that good right now. And the same argument that we made for CAMELLYA, the same argument that we made for ZhangLi, it's going to come into play. Because she needs, like I said before, guys, and it's going to be a consistent thing when it comes to these older units, she needs her 50% resonance skill damage amplification character that also has coordinated attacks. Yes, she needs that unit to be considered higher value. And I pray that that character has like AoE coordinated attacks, because this character is some hot dog shit in Wuthering Waves. She might actually be comparable to Phoebe, if not actually worse than WuWa, because it's just the way that she builds up, the damage that she does, it's a big chunk, it's a big burst. It's just not really that good or not really that great for that game mode. And in TOA, her damage has simply fallen behind because her sub DPSs are really just not even that great for her. The best sub DPSs that JNHSI can run are Cantarella and ZHEZHI. And at a baseline, the only thing that these guys provide is 25% resonant skill damage amplification. That is the buff that they provide for JNHSI. You wanna know what the crazy part is, guys? Tao Chi actually has more damage buffs for JNHSI than either of these two characters. But Tao Chi has no coordinated attacks and one of the slowest rotations in the game. So it's like, she's even like fucked in this regard. She doesn't have like the Sanhua way out like CAMELLYA does. And so yeah, guys, it's just, she needs that limited 5-star sub DPS that has the 50% resonant skill damage amplification and the coordinated attacks to charge up her forte. But until then, I'm not gonna lie, she does feel like she's fallen behind, and I'm not gonna go ahead and like recommend her as like a great pick, but I'm also not gonna lie about the fact that Spectro itself is not really doing that good, because you have Phoebe, who has issues in WuWa, you got JNHSI, who has issues in WuWa, and not that good teammate, and then you have ZANI, who's just, good lord, not really that great of a unit either. So I would honestly say that Spectro is in the worst spot out of almost all of the Wuthering Waves elements. Honestly, it's like Spectro and Glacio that are having a rough time, because Carlotta's the only fucking Glacio damage dealer of the game, other than fucking Ling Yang. So, yeah, it's just, again, for these three units over here, they could have the potential to be ranked a lot higher, but they are held back by their sub-DPS partners. While characters like Augusta, you know, etc., Cartethyia, so on and so forth, Galbrena, they all have their best in slots. And they're all, like, good to go. And it's just rough to see all these units that have really no other comparison to some of these newer ones that have come out. And again, it's the teammate. And speaking about teammates, let's move on to YINLIN, the worst sub DPS in the game. And I think I've already listed out a bunch of times what makes her actually, like, so bad. And her motion values are just non-existent. That's the biggest issue that she has. She just does not deal the damage that other sub DPS characters deal. And her motion values are pathetic compared to the rest of the roster. I've already shown you all in the ZhangLi section exactly what makes her bad. And while, again, she is playable in Wuthering Waves, it's not like she's going ahead and doing all the work in that game mode. ZhangLi ulting in and then dealing 400k and then blowing up the waves and then blowing up more waves with hypercubes is what's doing the damage in the game mode. Because guess what? Her coordinated attacks expire when the enemy dies. And while she can charge them up fast in WuWa, Well, it's good for one wave, and then she's dealing no fucking damage for the rest of the rotation. It's all Zhang Liao. So it's like, even in Whimpering Waste, Zhang Liao is the dude that is absolutely carrying the fuck out of the team. And with her, good lord, I just wish she actually did some fucking damage. And she's in the bin with ROCCIA, because they both deal no damage. They both get interrupted for free across their rotation. And they both have a lot of clunk in their trunk when it comes to actually playing them. And it's rough. It is rough. So yeah, I don't really think I need to do the breakdown of everything that makes her shit, because we've kind of been alluding to it the entire video. YINLIN basically is a unit where her weapon is a higher priority than her. So yeah, make sure you get String Master when you have the opportunity to, but skip this fucking unit until she gets buffed. She needs one desperately. Her and ROCCIA both need buffs desperately. I would dare say. And there's a reason why they're the lowest ranked characters on the Pride Win tier list in all of the game modes. Because they're fucking actually bad. All right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to move on to... Well, you've all been waiting for it. You've all been waiting for it. It's a long recording we've got on our hands over here. We've got JIYAN. And boy, oh boy, is this a conversation for us to have today. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the character has never really been in a better spot. The character has genuinely never actually been in a better spot. Because I'm going to be real with you, ladies and gentlemen. He conquers Whimpering Wastes. He currently destroys the TOA. He has now his first limited 5-star team. And it does really fucking well. There's a lot of things that are going very, very well for him. And so, I think I'll comfortably place him in A tier for now. I would dare say maybe even top of A tier. And the reasons for this are going to be kind of simple. Let me just break down exactly what makes him a high-value pick, in my opinion. So, the character naturally just deals a good chunk of damage. And he also has so many teams available, at least at this present time, along with free-to-play options. And that's what's ranking him above other units. So, this is the thing. JIYAN has the Classico 1.0 lineup. And so, when you're using him, right, you don't need to invest giga heavily to be able to clear content in the game. And I've taken this into all of the TOA modes. This does just fine to clear, right? Then you can decide to level up. You can put in more premium options like Shorekeeper, do all of this. You have no issues, right? This is very similar to why I have CAMELLYA ranked high. Because CAMELLYA and Sanhua fucks up most of the content in the game. But this is the thing. This team for CAMELLYA can sometimes feel like it's falling behind a little bit in the TOA because CAMELLYA doesn't really have that upgrade to Sanhua, the sub-DPS option. And similarly, JIYAN plus Mortefi can feel like it's falling a little bit behind in the TOA. I think most people can agree with that. However, JIYAN has the privilege of upgrading to a Iuno, and he can now run the Shorekeeper Iuno JIYAN team. And this one has a great time in the TOA. It also has a great time in Whimpering Waste. And then you can decide to even go a little bit further with this team, and you can throw in a Ciaccona. Or God forbid, I guess you could decide to throw in an Arrow Rover too. You have, because Arrow has been built out so significantly, you have a surprising amount of just possible teams that you can run with this unit. And if you happen to be somebody that doesn't have Cartethyia, or maybe you have Ciaccona, or maybe you even have Cartethyia, well, I'm not gonna lie, this team is literally absolutely dumpstering on pretty much all the content in the game. This is probably the best WuWa team that there is for Arrow. It absolutely destroys Whimpering Waste. Without a fucking shadow of a doubt, it destroys Whimpering Waste. And this is a premium team. And people will make the argument, oh, JIYAN's just getting wheelchaired over here. Hey, guys. Who's getting wheelchaired in this team? Does this team with Cartethyia do good if you don't have Arrow Rover with their R5 weapon? Does this team do good when Cartethyia is not able to exhaust the 20+ erosion stacks that Ciaccona provides? Not really, right? And similarly, hey, any of y'all try to use Galbrena without Qiuyuan or Mono Fusion? Any guys try to use Galbrena without Qiuyuan or Mono Fusion? It's fucking bad. And so, having teammates that happen to be limited units, and then your performance in the team dramatically increasing with limited units is a phenomenon that exists for every single character. It's a phenomenon that exists for every single unit. Oh, and by the way, you ever tried using ZANI without Phoebe? So is Phoebe wheelchairing ZANI? This is the thing. You can say wheelchair as much as you want. You can say it as much as you want for this team. But the reality is that this team is better than Iuno DPS. This team is better than Cartethyia with Ciaccona in Wuthering Waves. And this team is something that does fall behind some other lineups in the TOA itself. But in Wuthering Waves, this is probably one of the best teams you can actually run. And when you factor in all the different things, I mean, I just gotta say, this guy's got a free-to-play team. He's got a semi-premium team. This is like the semi-premium team. And then you got the Giga Premium team where you level up to here. And he's got top-tier DPS, top-tier performance. The team performance is incredibly high in all of those. But I will make the concession, and there's a reason why he's not in S. There's a reason why he's actually a little bit, below that in A over here. To reach his full potential, he needs limited units. But guess what, guys? That's the same thing for every other character in S. And the only thing that I'm going to drag him down for is the fact that his current free-to-play teams aren't really at the same level as these other units. And that's kind of like it, right? When you run him with Mortifi and you run him with Verino or a Shorekeeper, it does fall behind. But then you give him the full premium team. I mean, that's the thing, right? Bro's crushing it. Bro's crushing it. And he has a lot more team variability than a lot of these other characters that you're seeing over here. He has a lot more team options as well. So, I mean, yeah. Maybe we'll just do a quick little gameplay demonstration in Wuthering Waves so you guys can see how absolutely brutal this thing is. All right, let's see what we can run over here. Let's do a Ciaccona. Yeah, let's do Ciaccona, Iuno, and JIYAN real fast. Yeah, let's do a little bit of that. Should we also use the Giga Shield? Let's just use the Giga Shield token, and we'll see how this team does. Let me also make sure he's got some gear on him.
The battlefield is dynamic. Do not
let me make sure he's got some gear on him. Yeah, people are going to get mad about that. People are going to get mad about that preset. I already know. They're going to get angry about that preset title. And let's see how this one does.
Ready for battle. Lend me your power.
Thanks for watching. Ta-da! A grand overture. A perfect chord.
Ready for battle.
On you go. Fate.
You're wide open. Fear no more. 7. Lend me your...
Thanks for watching. Listen, the trio of destiny. I'll indulge you. On you go.
I mean, you can see over here, the score is already looking kind of nutty.
Future.
Ready for battle. Unstoppable. Finale.
I don't know. Bro is just straight up mowing down these fucking one costs.
Lend me your power.
Got that nice triple parry.
Let the show begin. Now watch closely. On you go. Answer my call. Praise me. Foe, be my prey. Causality.
You're wide open. Fear no more.
Oh my gosh, that just looked crazy. 26k ticks.
Thanks for watching. Faster.
And remember, this is on side 1, where you have a lot of difficulty scaling up.
With style and grace.
With Liberation reliant characters like this
The
team.
moon is full. Entertain me. Fate.
Ready for battle. Unstoppable. Break.
Thanks for watching.
So yeah, I mean, you're not really getting results like that in your Cartethyia teams. You're not really getting results like that or even close to that in your Cartethyia lineups. And I know that for a fact. You're not getting like close to 4K on side 1 with your Cartethyia lineups. That's just not happening. Remember, this is side 1 where you don't have your liberation available at the start. So yeah, that's going to be the tier list, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this has been a long video, but we've effectively placed my value in terms of like overall picks of pretty much every single limited character that's in the game. And while we still have the release of Chisa coming up, I think that this is a pretty good regards overall of the variability of character strengths, their flexibility to work in a bunch of teams, and of course, their overall performance in the 2 game modes that we have, Whimpering Waste and Tower of Adversity. And so, once again, there are certain characters that are going to be a lot better in TOA compared to WuWa, and a lot of characters that are better in WuWa compared to TOA. And we definitely did make sure to actually break down all the various strengths and weaknesses of these units, and of course, how they've sort of shifted over time, and what needs to be true for them to have more viability in the future. So yeah, a lot of the 1.0 units are being held back by the fact that they don't really have great teammates that they can work alongside. And I would view JIYAN as an example over here of a 1.0 unit who has gotten those new teammates and now has way more viability than they did in the past. These other guys, though, they haven't necessarily gotten that privilege yet. So, yeah, we'll see how this evolves as time goes on and as more, 3.x characters, so on and so forth, get released. And hopefully we'll see some more, good groupings of characters in the future. So, yeah, that'll be that for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.